A late July Gallup poll showed that 58% of Americans supported a UN army dealing with the problems of Southeast Asia. 52% believed the US was handling Vietnam about as well as could be expected, while 38% believed the matter was handled badly. A Lou Harris poll showed that Johnson, while leading Goldwater 64 to 36% in the presidential race, saw a 5-point drop in support, 59 to 41%, when voters were asked about who they believe would be more effective at handling the conflict in Southeast Asia. An operation took place between July 30th and 31st against the North Vietnamese islands in the Gulf of Tonkin. The American destroyer USS Maddox beginning a patrol in the same area the following day. 3 North Vietnamese torpedo boats attacked the Maddox, and it responded by hitting back, sinking one of the boats and damaging the other. Bill Bundy recalled beginning a 10-day vacation on August 1st with the understanding that LBJ would not make any major decision, such as the consideration of expanding the war, until after the election. Johnson, though determined to show Hanoi that the U.S. could not be intimidated, responded by playing down the incident and preventing it from escalating during the presidential campaign. The president met with State Department and military advisors on August 2nd, where he is described as sounding bewildered about the incident and changed the subject to the postal pay bill. North Vietnam said nothing about the incident over the next 2 days, convincing Johnson they also wanted to downplay it from turning into something more, and figured Hanoi had falsely connected the 3-4A operation and Maddox patrol, and were compelled to attack the destroyer after incorrectly suspecting the Maddox as part of the attack force against the Tonkin Gulf Islands. Johnson, Rusk, McNamara, and Wheeler met and concluded that no further immediate action was required. McNamara, Bundy, and Ball suggesting leaking information to counter Hanoi's belief that the Maddox was part of the 34A attack. Dalek writes, Johnson and his advisors read Hanoi wrong. They could not believe that the North Vietnamese would be so foolish as to challenge U.S. military power head-on. Everyone from Johnson on down saw the destroyers in the Gulf as an intimidating force that would discourage Hanoi from further aggression, or at least put them on notice that they would have to deal directly with American power if their campaign of subversion continued against the South. The North Vietnamese viewed the American ships not as a deterrent, but rather as a target or an opportunity to tell Washington that it would not be inhibited by U.S. power in pursuit of its vital national interest, the unification of all Vietnam under its control. On August 4th, the commander of the Maddox reported that communication to the North Vietnamese showed the 34A operation made all U.S. ships in the Gulf belligerent in the view of Hanoi. LBJ informed Democratic congressional leaders of a possible attack during their weekly legislative breakfast session, the group agreeing that military action and a congressional resolution in support of the president would be the response to any clash. Johnson then conferred with Kenny O'Donnell, the two agreeing that Johnson would open himself up to charges of weak leadership by Goldwater and the right-wing Republicans if he did not act forcefully. 2 midday meetings between Johnson, national security advisors, and foreign policy advisors produced a military response that saw the group agree to an airstrike against the North Vietnamese torpedo boat bases. When James Reston asked George Ball how Johnson was handling things, Ball replied, extremely well. He is the kind of guy that thrives on crises in the sense that he seems more cool and relaxed when he has real decisions to make than he does otherwise. Although the commander of U.S. Pacific Forces guaranteed Washington that an attack had taken place, both Johnson and McNamara sought guarantees they were not responding to a phantom battle, a sentiment echoed by others from the confusion of Hanoi's motives for attacking the U.S. ships in international waters. Johnson treated the attack as a given during his meetings with the National Security Council and congressional leaders that evening. Seeing no reason to back down, LBJ asked, "Are we going to react to their shooting at our ships over 40 miles from our shores? If yes, we should do more than merely return the fire of the attacking ships. If this is so, then the question involves no more than the number of North Vietnamese targets to be attacked." When Russ spoke to congressional leaders, he told them they should not look on anything as accidental, and a lack of response from the U.S. would see their position in Southeast Asia misinterpreted. Johnson desired a congressional resolution for military action, and a resolution backing a general policy of firmness in Southeast Asia. He remembered the opposition to Truman's involvement in the Korean War for its lack of congressional approval. LBJ sent the Tonkin Gulf Resolution to Congress, the document laying out the challenge to peace and security in Southeast Asia from Hanoi, and granting congressional approval and support for all measures deemed necessary by the president to repel and counter upcoming attacks of the U.S. armed forces. On August 7th, the House and Senate voted overwhelmingly to pass the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution. The only 2 senators to vote against the resolution were Wayne Morse and Ernest Gruning. Johnson said the overwhelming congressional support for the resolution was a demonstration to all the world of the unity of all Americans. They prove our determination to defend our own forces, to prevent aggression, and to work firmly and steadily for peace and security in the area. Dalek writes, Johnson was not happy about his choices in Vietnam. None of them seemed quite right. His only certainty in the summer of 1964 was that election politics dictated an image of himself as a firm but cautious defender of national security. At a background meeting with the press in mid-September, he restated his determination to sustain the Eisenhower-Kennedy policies of providing measured support for Vietnam while avoiding another Korea. But privately, he worried about involvement in unpredictable struggle, a conflict that might require greater commitments than he wished to make. He had a sense of foreboding about Vietnam, a feeling that no matter what he did, things might end badly.